They expected a statement, a dramatic return, a bold declaration that said, "I'm back." But you didn't post anything. You didn't share a quote. You didn't explain where you went, because you never left. You evolved. Quietly, privately, without needing applause or permission. While they waited for a comeback, you built something they'd never understand: momentum in silence. You see, the loudest people rarely win. They shout to cover the gaps in what they haven't done. But you've been quiet for a reason, because real growth doesn't announce itself. It shows up in energy, in presence, in the way the room shifts when you walk in without saying a word. You didn't owe the world a comeback. You owed yourself consistency, and that's what you gave. While they refreshed their timelines looking for proof you were still trying, you were building proof they couldn't ignore. No hashtags, no pity posts, just discipline, routine, mastery. The kind of change that doesn't need to be described, because it's undeniable when seen. They thought silence meant defeat, but silence was your lab, your training ground, the cave where you sharpened every edge. And now, you walk back into the spotlight, not with noise, but with weight. The kind that makes people uncomfortable, because it reminds them what they could have done while they were busy being seen. They were addicted to the performance, to the chase, to the illusion of effort. They wanted to be seen working, seen grinding, seen improving. You watched quietly, and while they were perfecting the art of showing up online, you were disappearing into discipline. That's the part no one celebrates. The early mornings, the hours with no feedback, the sacrifice that doesn't get likes. That's where the shift happened. When you stopped doing it for proof and started doing it for power. You didn't chase attention, you chased results. Not because you had something to prove to them, but because you had something to prove to the voice inside you that knew you were built for more. And now you're not just better, you're beyond. You don't just return, you arrive, fully, sharper, harder to reach, harder to read. They scroll through feeds looking for your failure, hoping to screenshot your mistakes, but they find nothing, just silence. Until they see you at a level they thought you'd never reach, and then it hits them. While they were posting, you were planning. While they were promoting, you were preparing. While they were reacting, you were rebuilding. And now that it's real, you still don't say anything. You let the silence speak, and it says everything they were afraid of. You didn't come back. You moved on. You didn't shout. You showed up. And you didn't ask to be seen. You made yourself. They see you now and don't know how to respond. There's no announcement, no caption, just presence. a shift in energy that doesn't need explanation. You don't walk into the room with noise, you walk in with gravity. You don't say, "I'm back." You don't need to, because everything about you says it louder than words ever could. The way you move, the way you focus, the way you've become immune to distraction. And that silence, it unsettles them, because it's not passive, it's pressure. It makes them rethink every moment they doubted you, every time they laughed, dismissed, or assumed you were finished. They thought you'd come back chasing validation, but you came back without needing any of it. And that's what breaks them, because people only know how to fight noise. They don't know what to do when the threat is quiet, controlled, and already winning. You became the version of yourself they never believed you had the discipline to reach. And now that you're here, you don't need applause. You're not building an audience, you're building a legacy. One step at a time. One quiet win after another. While they're still talking, you're still moving, still executing, still growing. And if they ever wonder how it happened, the answer's simple. You stopped trying to prove and started being undeniable. You don't need revenge. You need routine. The kind that nobody sees, but everybody feels. You don't explain what you're working on, you let the results reveal it. Step by step, without applause, because you're not trying to convince anyone anymore. Not your past, not your critics, not even yourself. You've already decided who you are, and now you just show up and confirm it daily. That's the real power. Consistency without performance. Not showing people what you're about to do, just doing it. Not chasing credit, chasing standards. Not trying to be seen, becoming unignorable. While they measure effort by visibility, you measure it by outcomes. That's why you're quiet. That's why you're dangerous. They'll scroll past your silence and assume you disappeared. But when they least expect it, they'll run into something you built, a product, a skill, a reputation, and it'll hit them harder than any post ever could. Because that's how silence works. It doesn't warn you. It waits. And when it's time, it delivers. You're no longer working to be understood. You're working to be respected. Not by everyone, by yourself. Because validation that comes from others is fragile, but the kind you earn in private, that's unshakable. You don't post your grind, you live it, and now it shows. You didn't announce a comeback, You became the consequence. They waited for noise, for an update, for proof that you were still trying. But while they waited, you executed. You learned to separate movement from attention, progress from praise, growth from applause. And now, every room you enter is quieter because they feel it, that shift, that tension, that weight of someone who no longer needs to be heard, to be felt. They hoped for failure because your success reminds them of what they didn't do, what they could have done, what they said they would do. And now, your presence, silent, calm, unshaken, forces them to confront the version of themselves they abandoned. Not because you said anything, but because you became everything they avoided becoming: focused, disciplined, unbothered. You don't post wins, you collect them. You don't announce changes, you become them. Your life has turned into a series of silent upgrades, and each one widens the distance between who you were and who you are now. That's what scares them the most. They can't track you. You've become unpredictable, private, powerful, and when they can't predict you, they can't control you. So they'll keep refreshing, keep watching, keep wondering, waiting for something to break your rhythm. But nothing does, because this time, it's not motivation pushing you, it's identity. You don't show up to prove anything. You show up because this is who you are now. They wanted a comeback story. You wrote a transformation. No updates, no noise. Just subscribe and let them feel the silence. Now the silence speaks louder than any caption could. They refresh your feed, hoping to decode your next move, but nothing shows. Just stillness, just absence. But it's not inactivity, it's intention. You're not hiding, you're refining. And every second you don't post, you become more unpredictable, more elusive, more powerful. You've become a mystery they can't solve, and people fear what they can't read. The ones who used to mock your grind now whisper when you pass. They're careful, unsure, because they remember the version of you who over-explained, who apologized, who tried to keep peace. That version no longer exists. In its place is someone who doesn't argue, just upgrades, who doesn't complain, just climbs, who doesn't respond, just redefines. You've built momentum that isn't loud, but unshakable, and now it shows in how you walk, how you look, how you pause before speaking. You've become a force, not the kind that demands attention, but the kind that changes rooms without saying a word. You don't seek validation, you bring gravity, and the moment they feel it, they realize what they've lost isn't just your voice, it's access. You didn't come back for recognition. You came back to take up space in a way that can't be ignored. You're not chasing legacy, you're building it silently. They called it your downfall. They pointed at your silence like it was proof you had nothing left. But while they talked, you plotted. While they posted, you planned. What they didn't realize was that silence was never absence. It was a cocoon, and inside it, you weren't just healing, you were designing your next evolution. Now you show up different. You don't lead with noise, you lead with results. And when you enter the room, they feel it. That pressure, that shift in tempo, because you've become everything they never thought you'd become. Steady, private, lethal, not because of some miracle, but because of routine, because of restraint, because of consistency when no one was watching. They thought silence was weakness. You made it your weapon. You no longer explain, you don't defend your absence, you don't prove your worth. Because those who understand you don't need a reminder, and those who doubt you don't deserve one. Now you move on your own frequency. You're not reacting to the noise, you've become immune to it. You're not in the same race anymore. You're on a different path entirely. And the people who once had front row seats to your struggle, they're stuck in the audience while you rebuild the entire arena. They searched for a comeback. You created a shift. You don't post progress. You live it. Every day without updates, without declarations. You're not counting milestones, you're creating movement. And that movement has no soundtrack, only results, real ones. The kind that can't be faked, can't be filtered, can't be edited to look better than they are. It's slow, it's brutal, but it's real. And that's what separates you from them. They still wait for the comeback, the announcement, the proof, but by the time they see what you've done, it's already too late. You're not returning to the level you left. You've passed it. You're somewhere else now, a place only consistency can reach, a place where validation dies and results begin. And the people who once judged your silence now copy your strategy. Quietly, desperately, hoping they can get what you earned without doing what you did. But it's not the same, because silence doesn't work unless it's backed by substance. And you have it. You earned it. Through hours no one saw, through decisions no one praised, through effort that broke you and built you again. Now they look for shortcuts. You look for standards. They chase visibility. You chase longevity. They talk about effort. You talk through outcomes. And that's why you don't need a comeback post, because every step you take is already speaking louder than anything they could type. They kept looking for signs, for cracks, for hints that maybe the silence meant something was wrong, but nothing came. No rants, no replies, no breakdowns, because there was nothing left to explain. You outgrew the need to narrate your every step. What once felt like a battle to be heard now feels like a privilege to be unseen. You didn't fall off. You took off, quietly, deliberately, while they laughed at your stillness, you built stamina. While they posted progress, you developed precision. And now, your actions echo in rooms you haven't stepped in yet. People whisper your name in places you've never been, not because you shouted, but because your results started traveling without you. That's the kind of reputation silence builds. One that doesn't need defending, one that doesn't need marketing, one that doesn't need to be loud to dominate. You no longer chase what you used to want. You've redefined what winning looks like. It's not a comeback post. It's waking up, focused, moving with purpose, and sleeping with peace. It's doing the hard things when no one is clapping, and it's walking through every room like you built it. They thought disappearing meant defeat. It was strategy. They thought you quit. You were becoming. They thought you faded. You were sharpening. Now, the silence they once mocked is the silence they fear. You never needed to announce your return. You weren't seeking redemption. You weren't waiting for a moment to prove them wrong. You were too busy becoming right for yourself, not to silence them, but to awaken you. And now that you've arrived, you don't even have to look back, because they see you, every step, every shift, every silent move, and they know exactly what happened. You didn't quit. You leveled up. What was once doubt is now data. What was once noise is now nothing. You move through life without explanation because you've built something bigger than approval. You've built proof, and proof doesn't need permission. It just shows up and speaks for itself. So no, there's no comeback post, no dramatic video, no I told you soer. There's just a presence that speaks louder than your past ever could, a silence that demands nothing but gets respect, a momentum no one saw coming until it was already too late to catch up. Let them scroll, let them speculate, let them refresh their feeds looking for closure. You've already moved on. And the only thing they'll ever see now are the results.